My beloved, let me begin where no one else has been able to reach you. There is something hurting inside you that never learned how to make a sound, not because it is small, not because it no longer matters. It stayed quiet because silence became the safest place to put your pain. Over time, you learned that some sorrows survive better when they are hidden than when they are spoken. And now the ache has lived in you so long that even you struggle to name it. That is why I have come so close to you now. This is not a random message crossing your path. This is not a soft word thrown into the air for whoever happens to hear it. I am speaking to the woman who has been swallowing tears so deeply that they no longer look like tears at all. They look like patience. They look like tiredness. They look like being dependable. They look like getting through the day without letting your voice shake. You have become like a house with every lamp still glowing, while the air inside has been thinning for years. You have become like a glass that never shattered in public, so everyone kept calling it whole, never noticing the fine cracks spreading through it. You still answered. You still showed up. You still carried what needed to be carried. And because you did not break where others could hear it, they mistook endurance for peace. But the deepest weight on you is not only sadness. It is the burden of hiding sadness for so long that it has started living in you without a proper name. Some days it settles in your chest before morning fully begins. Some days it follows you into the kitchen, into the texts you answer, into the chores, into the work, into the way you care for everyone while something inside you quietly fades. Life kept moving, so your grief never got to sit still long enough to be held. That is how pain becomes hard to recognize. That is how a woman can look fine while slowly disappearing inside herself. Precious one, hear me carefully. What people praised in you was not always strength. Sometimes it was endurance built out of disappointment. Sometimes it was composure shaped by the absence of a safe place to fall. You were called strong because you kept standing, but you did not become this steady because life held you well. You became this steady because too many times there was nowhere soft enough to collapse. That is why those words people used on you never felt as comforting as they sounded. They called you strong, while all along you were simply learning how to survive without being caught. So when I speak to you now, I am not speaking to the polished version of you. I am speaking to the one beneath the smile, the one who changes the subject when a question gets too close, the one who knows exactly how to keep her voice calm while her heart is going dark, the one who has mastered the art of saying just enough to stay polite, but never enough to be fully known. Your silence did not begin in peace. It began in disappointment. That matters more than you think. Because you did not stop crying in front of people because you were healed. You stopped because you learned that your tears were not always handled with care. You did not forget how to speak honestly. You just got too used to speaking and watching nothing really change. Your quietness was not born from calm. It was born from the ache of being tender in places that did not know how to receive tenderness. And I know how ordinary this pain can look from the outside. There were days you did not cry because there was no time. There were meals to make, guard, messages to answer, work to finish, people to care for, things to remember. The day kept asking things from you, so your sorrow stepped back and waited its turn. But its turn never really came. That is how some women break without ever looking broken. That is how grief hides inside responsibility. The world sees that you are still functioning. I see the cost. I see the fatigue behind your kindness, the hollowness behind your routines, the silence behind your smile. I see the way you kept yourself useful, careful, manageable. I see the inward system you built just to get through each day without letting everything rise at once. And I need you to know this. I am not only looking at your tears, I am looking at the whole hidden life around them. There is something even deeper here, weary heart. What has been wearing you down is not only exhaustion. It is not only loneliness. There is a lie that has been growing quietly in the dark, and it has wrapped itself around your daily life so tightly that some days it sounds like your own thoughts. I am going to uncover it. I am going to name what pain has been whispering to you, but not all at once. First, I need you to feel how fully known you are. Think of Hagar in the wilderness, not as a lesson, just as a woman who was pushed out, overlooked, left in a place she did not choose. Even there, she was not invisible to me. The woman the world could pass by quickly was still seen by heaven without hesitation, and that has not changed. It has not changed for the woman standing in a desert, and it has not changed for the woman standing in her kitchen, sitting in her car, folding clothes, answering everyone, and wondering why no one can hear the sadness beneath her steadiness. I hear it. I hear the sentence your life has been saying without words. I am tired of holding everything together while no one notices what it is costing me. So stay here with me, because I have not come only to comfort the tears you hid. I have come for the reason you believed they had to stay hidden at all. I have come to show you why you have lived so long like someone forgotten, even while standing among people who know your name. And what I am about to touch next goes deeper than the tears. It reaches the wound beneath what everybody kept calling your strength. There are mornings when you wake up and the heaviness is already there. Before your feet touch the floor, before anyone speaks your name, before the day has asked a single thing of you, your heart already feels full. Your mind is still clearing, but the burden is awake. Something in you is already bracing, already gathering strength, already preparing to carry more than it should. That is why your exhaustion does not start at the end of the day. It starts in the first quiet seconds of morning, when you realize you have to become strong again before you have even fully become yourself. So you begin the hidden work. You fix your face. You steady your voice. You adjust your energy. You put on that version of yourself that knows how to move through the kitchen, through the hallway, through work, through family, through conversation, without letting anyone see what it costs just to seem okay. It is like wearing an invisible coat. Everyone else sees something neat, normal, familiar. Only you know how heavy it is. Part of what drains you is not only pain, it is the daily effort of making pain look manageable. That is why when someone asks, "Are you okay?" the answer comes quickly. A small smile, a quiet nod. "I'm fine, just tired. I'm okay." Not because that is the whole truth. Not because you enjoy hiding. Not because you are false. It happens because you already know what the honest answer would require. It would open a door. It would ask someone to slow down, stay present, listen with care, and hold what comes out without rushing to fix it. Too many times your truth has landed in hands that did not know what to do with it. Too many times the deeper answer was met with discomfort, quick advice, thin comfort, or a silence that felt even lonelier than before. So now your heart reaches for the smaller answer before your soul can reach for the real one. That is not pretending. That is survival. And still, the truth catches up with you when no one is there. It meets you behind the bathroom door when you finally have a minute alone. It waits in the car when you sit there a little longer before going inside because you are not ready to be needed again. It rises at the sink when your hands keep moving and your eyes suddenly burn for no clear reason. It lingers late at night when everybody else is asleep and you stay sitting in the dark because you do not want to carry the full weight of your own heart into bed with you. This is how your pain speaks now. Not always through loud tears, sometimes through stillness, sometimes through pressure in your chest, sometimes through staring into nothing for a few seconds too long. This is the secret life of your sorrow, and there is another ache wrapped inside it. People remember you when they need something. They come when they need steadiness. They come when they need wisdom, patience, softness, help, emotional strength, someone to calm the room, someone to keep things from breaking, someone to remember what everybody else forgets. They know you will carry. They know you will show up. They know you will make space. But when your own heart needs somewhere to rest, the room goes quiet. When you need tenderness, very few notice before you ask. Sometimes even after you ask, what comes back feels thin. That pain has cut deeper than you let yourself admit. Because being needed is not the same as being cherished. Being useful is not the same as being held. Being the strong one is not the same as being safe. You have given so much that the line between loving others and losing yourself has blurred. You learned how to arrive early, stay later, soften your words, swallow one more sentence, let one more thing go, stay calm so the house would stay peaceful, stay quiet so the atmosphere would not crack. You became the one who absorbs impact, the one who smooths, steadies, forgives, carries. And each time you moved yourself to the back, a small part of you drifted further away, not all at once, slowly, respectably, quietly. That is why you can sit at a table full of familiar people and still feel alone. Not alone because nobody is near you, alone because nobody has touched the truest part of what is happening inside. You still answer questions. You still care. You still show warmth. You still remember details. Yet there is a place in your heart that feels like an island, just off the shore of everybody else's life, close enough to be seen, never fully reached. And in that lonely place, thoughts have grown that you hardly dare to say. Maybe I only matter when I am useful. Maybe I'm easier to love when I need less. Maybe I have to keep being strong because no one will be strong for me. Maybe if I truly fall apart, everything around me will start falling too. Maybe silence is safer than honesty. Maybe hoping to be held is only another way to be disappointed. You have not always said those thoughts clearly. Sometimes they lived inside your habits instead. Inside the way you minimize what hurts. Inside the way you say, "It's fine," when it is not. Inside the way whole sentences die in your chest before they ever reach your mouth. There were things you wanted to say to your husband, to your children, to family, to friends, even to yourself. That you are tired, that you are afraid, that you wish somebody would ask again instead of settling for the easy answer. That you are not okay in the way people assume. That you feel yourself fading beneath the roles you keep fulfilling. But those words kept sinking back down. Over time they became pressure, then heaviness, then a sadness so familiar it stopped feeling speakable. That is why the tears are not the root. They are only the signal. The late night ache is a signal. The sting behind your eyes at the sink is a signal. The wait in the morning is a signal. These things are pointing to something older, something formed over years of learning that showing need can feel dangerous, that reaching out can end in disappointment, that silence can seem safer than hope. Think of the woman who bled for years in the crowd, carrying a suffering so constant it became part of daily life. Pain can last that long. It can become so woven into a person that other people stop knowing how to ask about it. But I do not grow numb to what has lasted a long time. I do not pass by the wound simply because others have grown used to your endurance. I touch what has been silent the longest. So stay with me now, because what has made your heart this tired is not only what you have been through, it is also what you started believing about yourself because of what you have been through. That is the shadow beneath the tears. That is the voice beneath the silence. And that is what I am about to name. And now, beloved, hear me clearly. Not everything you believed in pain was true. Pain spoke when no one was there to answer it. It filled the silence and explained the absence. It took what happened to you and turned it into a story about you, your worth, your place, why people came close, why they pulled away, how little you were allowed to need. That voice stayed so long it started to sound familiar. But familiar is not the same as true. You began to believe that being needed was the same as being loved. If people leaned on you, called you first, trusted your strength, you thought that meant your heart was safe with them too. But being useful is not the same as being cherished. Being depended on is not the same as being held. A woman can be essential to everyone around her and still go untouched in the places where she is most tender. You thought silence made you safer. You thought if you asked for less, you would lose less. If you stayed easy, calm, helpful, undemanding, then maybe you could avoid one more disappointment. So, you cut your sentences short. You softened your need before anyone else could reject it. You learned how to hide the full weight of your heart behind smaller words. But silence did not always protect you. Precious one, often it only protected others from having to face what you were carrying. Pain told you that if you asked for too much, you would be left with less. It told you your tears were a burden, your needs were inconvenient, your softness was dangerous. It told you that being easy to keep was the price of being kept at all. So you began editing yourself before anyone else had the chance to. That is what hurt does when it goes unanswered. It does not only wound the heart, it starts rewriting the mirror. This is why what happened to you changed more than your feelings. It changed the way you read yourself. You did not only feel overlooked, you started to think maybe you were not worth prioritizing. You did not only feel lonely, you started to think maybe your deeper needs were too much for anyone to hold. You did not only experience disappointment, you began shaping your whole life around avoiding it. The wound did not stop at pain, it moved into meaning. It is like looking through a window covered in fog for so long that you begin to think the sky itself is gray. It is like living in a dim room so long that darkness starts to feel normal. You were not foolish for struggling to see clearly. You were standing too long inside conditions that made the false feel ordinary. A lie repeated inside a wounded heart does not always sound cruel. Sometimes it sounds wise, sometimes it sounds mature, sometimes it sounds like survival. But a voice can be old, constant, and deeply familiar, and still not be mine. So learn this difference now. The wound has a voice, but that voice is not the voice of God. The wound says, "You were forgotten because you were not worth remembering." The wound says, "Do not open again, it will only hurt again." The wound says, "Keep giving, at least then you still have value." The wound says, "Be easier, be quieter, be less." I do not speak to you that way. I do not call your tears inconvenient. I do not call your tenderness a liability. I do not call your need a flaw. I do not ask you to shrink so you can qualify for love. Hear this, weary heart. The fact that you became the strong one is not proof that you needed no one. Sometimes it is only proof that you stopped believing anyone would hold you well. The fact that you became quiet is not always proof of peace. Sometimes it is a scar dressed in good manners. The fact that you learned to manage your pain does not mean your pain was small. It means you became skilled at surviving without enough shelter. And there is another lie I am breaking open. You started to think you were loved most when you were useful most, needed most when you sacrificed most, safest in people's lives when you were easy, low maintenance, forgiving, undemanding. Pain trained you to trade your presence for acceptance. It taught you to offer service where your soul was begging for care. But that was never healthy love, and it was never my truth about you. Think of Elijah when exhaustion emptied him so deeply that everything looked final. In his weariness, the future looked closed, his strength looked gone, his life looked smaller than it was. I did not answer that distortion with contempt. I answered with presence, care, and enough truth to steady him again. Deep fatigue can bend perception. It can make temporary darkness look permanent. It can make a bruised identity sound honest. So I'm not naming these lies to shame you for believing them. I am naming them because they have been quietly leading your life. Truth does not come to humiliate you. It comes to free you from what has ruled you in secret. I am not exposing the false so you will feel foolish. I am exposing it so you can stop calling it wisdom, so you can stop building your life around conclusions pain made for you. Listen closely. You thought you were too much, but you were carrying too much. You thought you were hard to love, but you were rarely loved where you were tender. You thought asking would break everything, but loneliness was already breaking you. You thought being less needy would make you safer, but it only made your sorrow quieter. You thought your strength proved you were fine, but often it only proved you had nowhere to fall. That trembling you feel now is not condemnation. It is a false foundation cracking. The voice you lived under is being interrupted. What pain called truth is losing its hold, and I will not leave you standing here exposed. Now that the wrong voices have been named, I am going to place truth where the wound once ruled. I am going to open air into the room that has been closed too long. What was distorted can be made clear again. What pain whispered over you does not get the final word. And now, precious one, stand here with me in a different light. What hurt you is real, but it is not your final name. I am not asking you to deny what happened. I am not telling you to stop feeling, stop remembering, or force yourself into strength before your soul is ready. I am giving you another place to stand. You can look at the wound without letting the wound tell you who you are. You can face what was painful without facing it alone. That is where healing begins, not in pretending the past was smaller, but in bringing it out of the dark where it has been shaping you in secret. Healing does not begin when you call deep pain not a big deal. Healing begins when you stop hiding the hurt from the light. A door that has been stuck for years does not become a window overnight, but when it is finally opened, the room can breathe again. The light does not erase the room. It does not deny what was shut away there. It simply changes what is possible inside it. That is what I am doing with the places in you that have been closed too long. I am not shaming the hidden room. I am opening it. So stop accusing yourself for being wounded. You have done that long enough. You told yourself you should be more grateful, more mature, less sensitive, stronger by now, more spiritual by now, less affected by what happened, less tired by what keeps repeating. You judged your own ache as though tenderness were failure. You treated your exhaustion like weakness. You looked at your need to be held and quietly called it deficiency. But your honest softness is not a moral flaw. Your weariness does not make you less faithful. Needing comfort does not make you less worthy. You are not failing because you feel deeply. You are human, and you are loved in that humanity. My beloved, your value does not rise when you endure better. It does not fall when you need care. You are not only the one who remembers everything. You are not only the one who holds the house together. You are not only the one who smooths the conflict, answers the messages, absorbs the tension, keeps the dates, steadies the room, and carries the emotional weight. Even when your hands are empty, you are still precious to me. Even when you are not helping, fixing, or protecting anyone, you are still wanted by me. Even when you pause, even when you sit down, even when you admit that you cannot carry one more thing with a brave face, you are still fully worthy of love. Do not measure yourself only by function. Do not read your worth through usefulness. The wound taught you to do that. I am teaching you another way. Think of the woman who had lived bent over for years, her whole body shaped by what it had carried too long. When I called her forward, I did not humiliate her. I did not scold her for not standing straight sooner. I did not ask her to explain why the weight had lasted so long. I called her where she could be seen, and I lifted what had kept her folded inward. This is my heart toward you. I am not disgusted by the part of you that has lived bent beneath sorrow. I am not impatient with the places where pain has changed your posture. I call that part forward so I can touch it with mercy and begin lifting it into truth. And I will not rush you. Hope does not have to arrive as a sudden sunrise flooding everything at once. Sometimes hope begins much smaller than that. Sometimes it begins when you believe one true sentence instead of one old lie. Sometimes it begins when you pray more honestly than beautifully. Sometimes it begins when you stop calling your sadness weakness. Sometimes it begins when you stop apologizing for needing to be heard. Sometimes it begins when you let yourself admit, even in a whisper, that you want to be cared for too. These are not small things to me. These are the first movements of breath returning. So do not despise the slow work. I am not promising you a shallow tomorrow where nothing hurts and everything makes sense by morning. I am promising that pain is not the only thing still alive in you. You are not a dead field. You are ground that has been held in winter too long. From above, it may look silent, it may look barren, it may look finished. But beneath the surface there is life I have kept. Beneath the cold, roots remain. Beneath the stillness, something is not dead at all. You do not need to force spring. You do not need to perform joy. You do not need to act as though the thaw has already happened. You only need to stay near the one who knows how to tend hidden life. Healing is also this: learning again how to be loved without proving your value first. You have spent too long believing you must earn gentleness by being useful. Too long believing you must qualify for comfort by staying composed. Too long believing your worth becomes visible only when you are carrying something well. But in my presence, you do not have to impress me with endurance. You do not have to come polished. You do not have to say you are fine before you come close. You do not need to trade usefulness for tenderness here. You may come as you are tired, uncertain, still healing, still learning, still tender in places you do not fully understand. Think of Mary at my feet, while the room around her still held unfinished tasks. She was not loved because she was producing. She was held because she was present. Let that sink into the part of you that has confused doing with worth. You are not only loved when you are managing life well, you are also loved when you are sitting still before me, breathing, listening, letting yourself be kept. So let your heart loosen a little here. You are not only being pulled out of what was false, you are being led back to what is true, not pushed, not dragged, led, patiently, steadily, gently. The room inside you does not have to stay airless. The bent places do not have to stay bent forever. The wintered ground is not beyond life. There is still a future in you that pain did not destroy. And as the voice of the wound grows quieter, something older and truer will begin to return. Your heart will start to remember who you were before sorrow spoke so loudly. I am not only bringing you out of a dark season, I am calling you back toward the self that pain tried to hide, and I am not done restoring what it covered.